What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review podcast. I am hanging out with Roger Miret today of Agnostic Front fame. Obviously, Roger Miret and the Disasters. So, what's up, buddy? How's your day going?
Randall, how are you? Oh, good, man. Day's great. It's grateful to be here, wake up and be alive and talk to you and just hear the birds sing.
Man, you ain't lying, dude. Every day you wake up is a luxury, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was all nasty weather all weekend as well, bright and sunny down here. And people that are watching, typically I do these in the afternoons. I don't really have a preferred schedule, but we're doing it like a little bit in the morning, kind of. It's kind of nice. It's nice to get up and do something productive in the morning. Get your day started in a positive note. I just want to talk to you today about some of the things that you've got going on. You just released, I know that's in the second press. I don't know exactly when it came out, but you had a book come out. And I wanted to know a little bit more about your book, what it's about, et cetera, et cetera.
The book's called With Time. It's available at for the second edition pre-orders right now at revhq.com. What was sold out was the first edition pre-orders. Are sold out, and then when everybody wanted to get it, that was all gone. So now we're on to the second edition. They're going to be slightly different from each other, but I almost feel like the second edition is the one to get at this point because I left 3 critical things out in the first edition that I'm making sure they're in the second edition. I'm swapping out some photos, making it a little different, just because, I can.
Right.
It's pretty much based on my archives and it's a visual history of Agnostic Front, actually pre-Agnostic Front. The book starts like in 77 with Vinny and the Eliminators. And then it goes into Agnostic Front. It kind of ends like the end of 85 for reasons that I just felt like these are the most intimate years of the band and punk and hardcore in general when things are very collectively still very small on a smaller scale and very personal, very intimate. And the scene was very, it's very, like I was telling you, very intimate, very close. Then, as soon as our record, Victim in Pain came out, we did our national tour, things got bigger. And I don't regret it. I'm grateful for it, of course. The book is cool because it's like I said, it's a combination of artifacts that I've held on forever, flyers, photos, unseen photos, and then in the center of it, there's a book. I kept a diary of our first U.S. tour, so you get to read along and be with us during the tour. So I kind of wanted this to be like your visual, like you're looking at it, and it tells a story on its own. Just looking at it, then you get to an actual real story, and then you go back to looking at it, and it's in chronological order. I got a little clip of it here.
That's a beautiful book too, though, because it's hardback. It's nice. It's a large.
It's 340 pages.
Damn,
it's not a little book. Hard for me to show anything here, but I quickly starts off with Vinny in his punk rock days. That's 1977.
Let's go. Come on, Vinny. That's awesome.
It's great. Then it starts getting into Max's Kansas City, and it's just very thick, well put together. Thing weighs almost 5 pounds.
That's incredible.
And a half. So it's a workout just reading it.
Right.
You can skip the gym, you can skip arm days. But it's I don't know if any of you or any of your listeners got to see the film The Godfathers of Hardcore.
Oh yeah,
it was a film basically on Agnostic Front. It came out. Ian McFarlane was the director and producer, and he did a phenomenal job. And it was it's a documentary, but a very different documentary. He captured it. Was just beautifully done. It was very very intimate. So I already did my biography.
Right.
Well, I wanted to do a book based as beautiful as that film was in his book's content, and in that film, you see me open up a trunk and I'm pulling stuff out. I'm talking about stuff. People are like, "What's in the trunk?" Well, there you go. It's in a book now.
That's what's up. Yeah, I ordered through Rev for my record store, so I've got that coming to the shop. I missed out on the first edition, but second edition is on the way. So, yeah, I like visual history, man. I think that's important, and it's a good conversation starter, even if it's sitting on my counter in the store and people can come up and just flip through it. I don't care if I sell it. I want people to look at it. Like, come in here and look at it all day. I don't care. Look at it.
And
So
it's that, I mean, it's heavyweight page, you know, it's like a really like thick coffee book. That's what I was shooting for. And there's some stories in there. I tell like 7 stories besides the diary. But it's cool because if you really sit down with it and you know, get a cup of coffee, sit down with it, take your time, you want to sit with it, you could actually see how it actually tells the stories, and you can see things like, oh, now I know how this shirt was created. You see everything kind of coming together. Oh, look at this picture, but this is the photographer on this side, and there's the photo, and it's. I put a lot into it. This is 4 years in the making. This was not thrown up.
4 years?
Yeah, it was not thrown. Yes, it was not.
That's incredible.
And I wanted something, you know, something beautiful for, you know, for the band's legacy itself. Something that, you know, my children, my great grandchildren, they could look through it and it tells the story of, you know, of that. My autobiography already told the story of my life coming in from Cuba, coming to America, you know, getting out of the streets of New York City, making my bands, whatever. And then, you know, here I am in Arizona with my family. So that told that story, like literally in words. This one tells it visually.
I think that's a good companion. Like they go together really well.
I'm always been the kind of person that like, I need, like, I'd never, like you said, you own a record store, right? So I'd never liked 7 inches that didn't have a sleeve. I'm like, well, especially punk records with no sleeves. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, to me, I would look at a sleeve, and if it looked like rowdy and crazy, I'm like, oh, let me check out this band.
Right.
You know, like, oh, what is this about? Like, that was my first attraction to the 7-inch. And then I'd be like, okay, I got to get it. I got to hear it. Or the back thanks and see. And if I like to see who they thank, because I thought they were all kind of like related, you know what I mean?
Right.
We didn't internet nothing back then. So to me, like, especially with this book, these are the days where all that really meant something. Like when zines meant something, when people's creativity, not just the band, not us just doing the music, like everybody involved, it was just so like personal. Like you're flipping through things, looking at things, and like, wow, look at this, look at that, and it attracts you, and you want to go check it out, whether it's a band or you want to pick up this magazine or you know, go to this regular art show, whatever you're doing. So I always think that's very, very important, just as important, you know, as, I mean, to me it is. So like, I'm an avid record collector myself. I also want, if you want to see some of my stuff, a few that I was at one point during the pandemic, I got bored. I put stuff up. Go to like Vinyl Assault on Instagram.
Okay.
It's called Vinyl Assault, and you can see like I've got records that are mind blowing. I have a pretty huge Misfits collection, Sam Hain collection. Besides Agnostic front, I have every Discord, every Touch and Go, and you know, I'll keep going. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'll be checking that out for sure.
Check that out if you're into records. It's Vinyl Assault. It's on Instagram, and then that I got bored and I started putting stuff up there. I told stories with the later stuff and about stuff, so it was cool. People were connecting on that, but I haven't put anything up there in a while because I've been kind of busy with this book, you know.
I think it's important that you're doing that. I am incredibly grateful for the time that you spent doing that. I was talking to a gentleman, I think it was last night, about some flyers, and he told me that I don't even know how it came up, but he told me that you had reached out to see if he had any old Agnostic front flyers that you didn't have already.
What's his name?
Man, hold on. I talked to him through Instagram. I wouldn't have that set up, would I? I think Paul, maybe. His name on Instagram is Tattoo Paul.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, you know, there's a lot of digging around. I've always, and still am, looking to fill in the holes where I don't have
right.
anything. I'm missing a few, but not very much. Especially with the tour, I had every flyer for the tour, which is cool. It compensates the tour book. When you see the tour book, I'll pull it out real quick, and then it starts going into the story of the.
I'm gonna hit a button. I'm gonna see if it'll pull back on your screen real quick. Okay. Yeah, there. You can give us a little more space for you to.
Okay, so for example, you get to this in the middle of the book.
Oh, it's
a tour diary I kept, and then you start going through the tour with me. I use flyers, pictures, actual diary entries, and other entries on the side. I mean, it becomes like now you're on tour with us. And then not till I started doing this did I notice that we were the first band out of the New York hardcore punk scene that actually went on a real U.S. tour. Because there's plenty of bands that went to like California and back and stuff like that. But we actually got in a van that we picked up from somebody, some random van. I actually bought it from some guy in the streets. I don't know whose it was. It didn't matter back then. It was a van. I mean, nobody ever asked for registration, license, all that stuff. We just took it, went on tour. We actually got pulled over by the cops. You could read about it in a diary. And they never even bothered asking us for any of that registration. Back then, it was wild,
Oh yeah, times are very different now.
very different. Now they want everything, And, we just went and we said, okay, we're going to go on tour. We had a 2.5-month tour booked that ended up being only 16 dates. So we started the tour. The first show was 6 canceled shows after the first show. It was just but we just kept going. We just stayed at people's house, hung out, played a quick show somewhere, something, moved on to the next show. Oh, it's canceled. Okay, we'll have to wait for the next show. We just kept going. We made T-shirts, survived on those T-shirts, and we had Victim in Pain with us and sold those. And if you start reading the diary, I didn't know I went fishing so much. We went fishing a lot.
That's awesome. Hey man, if you can find a spot to fish, you can eat. I'm 42, and I came across your music in the Epitaph days. I was like, a teenager, probably 15 or so. And so that's when I really got into your music. But at a later time in my life, say like maybe my early 20s, I really started listening to the older material, Victim in Pain, the records from the 80s. What made you guys start playing this kind of music? Because you kind of have your hand is in like 3 different melting pots of punk rock, and it's very important what you guys have done in all 3. Hardcore, oi, and just straight up punk rock. It's
I see the punk rock. They within punk rock, everybody likes kind of categorizing stuff. Even remember when straight edge had 3 rules: don't drink, don't fuck, don't smoke, EMK. Then all of a sudden there's like a million rules of being straight edge. And the same thing happened with punk rock. Then you had your algebra, core, and all kinds of crazy stuff. To us, man, we were just street punks, and we were just really street punks. The definition of street punks. That's what we were. We lived on the streets. We were punk rockers, hardcore punk kids. And, labels just kept getting attached to us, but as the scene started changing and becoming more powerful this way or that way. But, we grew up we kind of came, every band back then had their own style, their own sound. It's weird. You could kind of tell demographically where the bands were from. The East Coast bands always had a rougher, uglier sound, to be honest with you. Like your Negative Approaches. They're kind of a little bit Midwest, but Detroit, New York or Boston or even DC. It was a little bit faster, aggressive sound compared to what was coming out of LA or on the West Coast, But we all sounded differently. We all, pretty much had almost the same message. We're all like outcast kids, always. We were actually anti-war, anti-religion, anti-society. We were like, we wanted to make a change, and that's what it was. We were screaming for a change, to be honest with you. And we were young kids doing that. We were coming out of the traditional punk scene from New York. I mean, New York's got an incredible original punk scene. You're talking about Ramones, Blondie, Television, all these bands, were phenomenal, and bands that weren't from New York that ended up being in New York, well, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
You're coming out of that scene, which was more of a drug infested, including even the artists like the Andy Warhols. It was very arty, a lot of drugs. It was real. The definition of what you say when you say punk lyrically. Rock, it was pretty much rock music with punk attitude, full on. Like nothing defines punk rock better than the Sex Pistols, never mind the Bullocks. You take the lyrics out of that, it's straight up rock record.
Right.
You take music out of that, it's straight up punk lyrics, So we came from that scene, but we were now younger, and we were more like, yeah, we get to live fast and chaos and all that stuff, but we don't get to die young type of stuff. We want to make a little change. We want to make a difference. And then that's when the hardcore punk movement came in. As soon as you're Bad Brains hit New York City, it changed the sound, changed the style. Everybody wanted to play fast because everybody was blown away by what was going on, you know. But we were never, Agnostic Front were never musicians. We were never known to be musicians. We were what the band was known for prior to me. I'm actually the fourth singer. There was everything happened really quick, but I'm the one that did any records or anything, you know. They were always the people's band. They were known for the people loved them. They would just welcome the people. They were the people's band. I kind of feel like today we still are kind of the people's band, you know. They were a genuine band. They were a band that you could approach, a band that you felt like you want to belong to. Like, who wants to belong to something that doesn't feel real, or something that's fake? You know, it was intimidating to watch and see, but when you actually approached the people, it was very welcoming, you know. So it was always like, I mean, that was my gut. That was how I felt about Agnostic Front prior to being Agnostic Front. I was in parallel on another band called the Psychos. We were parallel bands, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But Agnostic Front was always the people's band of New York City, period. You know, it was something about it. You know, there was a lot of great bands out of New York City. A lot of our peers. I mean, I can name tons of New York City bands that are phenomenal, you know, but we were never known to be the best players. But then we put out Victim in Pain, and that record just elevated New York to a whole different level. It's almost like it was really talking about real oppression, real stuff going on that people worldwide connected to, like people from South America, from Europe, Australia, Japan. Everybody's connecting to this oppression and overcoming oppression and this sound. And then we were like the first band to bridge that, you know, that connectivity. Agnostic Front did that, you know, not consciously, subconsciously. We were just being ourselves. We were just playing, doing what we love, and we still are doing what we love. We're in the studio right now recording a new record.
Hell yeah.
We were
That's
just
amazing.
playing because we love what we do, and we were just being real. And people want, like I tell you, people want to be a part of something real. And it worked out, you know, it worked out. Like, you know, we went through a lot of controversy, a lot of crazy stuff, you know, because you get part of that. You know, people, you know, what's funny is people always like to like take jabs at you when you're successful, when you made up to a point, but they don't, while you're doing it, everybody's just silent. They don't know the what we had to walk through, what we had to live through. You know what I mean? My autobiography talks about that. You know, talks like, look, if you could walk in my boots, if you could walk what I walk, you could do what I do. I got a lot of respect for you. I'm not saying I don't respect anybody that hasn't. I'm grateful that they haven't gone through the struggles I had to go through, but it was real struggles. Nothing was handed to us. Like you see a lot nowadays, a lot of bands, they don't even know what it's like to jump in a van and go on tour.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
They're a hit overnight.
That's very foreign.
Overnight. And they're on buses. They never even been in the van. They're like the next biggest thing since sliced bread. And at the same time, we come from a world where if the Sex Pistols, you know, the Sex Pistols was a lot and Ramones, but if the Sex Pistols were a band today, they'd be canceled tomorrow. Their impact in the punk scene that started it all would not be for tomorrow. And I understand it's a different world we're all living in. I totally get it. But it's like it's incredible how things are that different.
No, it is incredible, and things are that different. It's back when I can't speak from experience as I was a very small child, but back in the 80s, everything was so much more. I don't know. I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody, but it was so much more important because if there wasn't a certain amount of success within, like you said, demographically, like over DC, New York, Boston, LA, it would have just crumbled. So you had to have people willing to go out, get in a van, and take a lot of chances. There's a lot of risk involved back then with doing this because, like you said, no internet, no cell phones. So you're doing, you know, coin-operated telephones and people's houses, and that's I mean, I can't even imagine doing that today. Like,
no, the stuff we saw, like on our first tour, like is stuff that it's just, and I talked about it in my autobiography too. Like, we actually saw a real Klan rally. You know, like we pulled over in the middle of a highway because we couldn't even believe it, and we took the lights off. We watched for a minute, and then we like, oh shit, we better get out of here. We seen crazy. You know, I played a bar mitzvah, never played a wedding. I mean, it's wild.
That's awesome.
The stuff that in that first tour, all this happened in that first tour. It's in the diary. It's in the book. You know, like it's wild the stuff that, and that we have experienced. And I'm just saying, like, look, if you're into anything like me, I'm a kind of person that, and I get into it something, I'm really connected to it. I don't, like I said, I don't want to be a part of something that's bullshit. And
Right.
I like to research a lot. I like to find roots and this definition and really get a clear understanding of stuff. So like I've always said, there's one of my quotes, it's probably on that page, Vinyl Assault on Instagram, is never trust a hardcore kid that's never listened to punk. Because the truth is, that's where it comes from. There is a metal thing later on in there, and there is that metal connection where we pretty much were living parallel lives because we were both outcasts. We both wore black. We both, loved fast music, aggressive music. But there were differences. One guy had long hair, the other guy had a mohawk or no hair. I mean, but we were outcasts of society. So there's a lot of similarities. That's why I could relate and I loved it, But at the same time, if you don't know the roots of either or, like especially punk, when it comes to hardcore, like I don't know, like that's where it comes from. I hate to tell you. And later on people say, well, this, and I get it, but do your research, man. Do some homework. You might like what you hear. You might not. And I'm all for the new bands. I'm 100% for the new bands. That's what keeps Agnostic Front relevant and going, is that we always take a lot of new bands with us. And we've never had any type of crazy egos, like we're the best, we're number one, whatever. No, never from the beginning. We were, like I said, we were never the greatest musicians, none of that stuff. In fact, it's great to like see other bands. Like how many bands have come up to me and say, oh, you inspired us, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm great. And I'm so grateful to see them keep going and get big. Bands like Rancid, Green Day, these are great freaking Offspring, great bands. And they've had some commercial success. And people are, oh yeah, whatever, they sold that. They said the same shit about the Clash. And when I was a kid, and I kind of felt that way about the Clash. I went to go see them at Shea Stadium, and I remember they played with The Who, and I was too much of an arrogant punk kid, and I was only there for the Clash, and I never saw The Who. What a jerk. I never saw The Who because I was too cool to stay and be there because I was punk rock. We've done dumb things in our lives. You know what I mean?
Oh, I've definitely done that.
yeah, you know what I mean? But the thing is, approach things with an open mind. These new bands, a lot of new bands have a lot of good stuff. And subconsciously, we're influenced by them too, just as much as they're influenced by us. Like playing with them for a month and hanging out with them for a month, things come together, And
well, they'd have to.
It's just, I just love this stuff, like me and Vinny, we've been doing this for what, 43, going on 44 years. This has been our life, and we love it.
I mean, that's amazing. It's very obvious that you love it and there's a passion there. And yes, if you hang out with any band from any era, if you hang out with people, you're going to get ideas and things from them. It's going to, you can see influence.
I want to go back to that, what you were saying, because we were mentioning about the differences, and like you were mentioning the differences in bands I've tapped into. For example, I mean, Agnostic Front to me is, Agnostic Front is his own class, his own animal. The Disasters came about. It was just songs that kind of weren't fitting at the time with Agnostic Front. And it was basically my first diary. It's really my first diary. Lyrically, all those songs are about my life, my personal life. And they're all hats off to bands that influenced me. Like I would take a lot, if I'm writing a song, because I did the first time basically almost, it was all, I mean, I think I wrote the whole damn thing, basically. And then it was basically like if I heard a part that sounded like the Business, I would throw a Business line in there.
Let's go.
It's because it was my tribute to them. Thank you. These are my influences. I'm paying respect to bands that influenced me, and at the same time paying respect to the people around me, because we all grew up with the same thing. Like back then, that's how the Disaster started. It was basically tapping into my own roots, my own personal roots, And then the Alligators, I don't know if you've heard of the Alligators.
I haven't heard the Alligators,
You've got to hear that. That's phenomenal. We have 2 albums out there. The first one was on Bridge Design. The second one we self-released. We have 2 7-inches, and we're about to drop another 7-inch right now. That's got 6 songs. And that is a continuation of Victim in Pain. What the Alligators is basically how it started was me on vocals and the 3 guys from Instead. minus Kevin. Kevin was a singer from Instead. So that's the Alligators. So it was them. They loved the East Coast hardcore. So they got to play with me singing, and we did songs that it sounds like what should have continued after Victim in Pain. It's just really in your face,
really fast,
calling everything and everyone in the world out, straight up, you know. Then we had Reese from the Disasters join us for our last album, and he also joined us now on his new 7-inch. So it's got me and Reese, and it's Rich from Instead, and Steve from Instead, you know. But it's a great. I mean, you get a chance, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's very, very underground. We've never played a show. Now we have 7 inches out. Yeah, we've never played a show. But if you get to listen to those songs, you'll be like, and you know, when people were talking about Off and all these bands, great bands, Keith and all that stuff, it's that in that vein, but ballsy, very East Coast, very in your face attack. So check it out. So
I will definitely check that out.
I still do like I say, I still do the Alligators. It's fun. We do it. We enjoy it, you know. As far as the Disasters, we have another record there. We just have to record it. And I'm recording a new Agnostic Front record. And to me, all that stuff really grounds me. And it's like I have outlets for it all, because sometimes I'll write a song and it just doesn't work here, but hey, it works here or it works here. And I get to still keep my creativity. I'm not like pigeon-toed into one corner. You know, that's how the Disaster started. I was able to write more like what I was writing, but without having to throw it away. I'm like, no, I'll just grab a couple other guys and I'll continue my creativity. Why should I stop it? Because it just doesn't fit, you know?
Right.
And that's what all those bands are to me. And they're all, you know, like I said, you could look up the Alligators, you could look up Roger Miret Disasters, you could look up Agnostic Front, and you could actually get a good round feeling of who I am. Besides my autobiography, which is called My Riot, and then With Time, the visual book, there's a lot there. I think I put myself out there pretty good.
I think that's important, and I appreciate it whenever I can learn from another person, I can relate to them and hear, like you said, your experiences. Maybe it'll make me feel a little more secure with stuff I've been through. You know, some kid that's going through some shit thinks nobody else has been through it. They read your story and they go, oh, and then also that helps them connect to your music better too. So,
absolutely.
You know, I was really pleased when Roger Miret and the Disasters came out. I really enjoyed that stuff. I was a big fan. I had a feeling it was going to be different than Agnostic Front, because why would you make the same exact band?
And
it
that's
just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. You understood it, but there were people like they expected it to be the same. Like, why?
that would be weird. That would be weird.
Like, I mean, I'm in Agnostic Front. I love what I do in Agnostic Front. Why would I do another band like Agnostic Front? It doesn't
right.
Make sense. Now, the Alligators it's a fun project because it's a time. It focuses on a little short time of really. It's really chaotic and really like it's unleashed. It's nuts, you know. So it's a fun project. In fact, our last album with Agnostic Front has 10 songs that were supposed to be Alligator songs and written in that vein, because guys from Agnostic Front love the Alligators. Like, oh, we need songs like that. So we and the way those songs are not like normal songs. You see, like a normal band will go, especially because we don't practice, we don't do anything. We show up in the studio, and Rich has got a song or whatever. He introduces the song to everybody, and you have 3 times to play the song. On the 3rd time, it's recorded, and that's it, because we want to capture that chaos, that loosey, that feeling of like surprise. Like, no, we're recording like 1 practice, 2 practice, 3 hit record. That's it. It's done. No more chances. No more nothing. You're done. And I go on the same thing with the vocals. You're done, and it comes out insane. It's like it's wild, because you're like going like, oh my god, and it's got this energy that. You know, that we, you know, we kind of like, because we're like with the Disasters, we like, you know, Recycle's doing a lot of guitar stuff, or even with Agnostic Front, we're kind of a little bit more under a microscope of people looking at. So with the Alligators, we're just chaotic and crazy, and who cares?
I'd probably capture some imperfections in those songs that make it better, that wouldn't be there if you kept going and practicing.
Exactly.
Practicing.
If you knew the song and you want to fix this, you want to fix it. No, you don't get to do that. You do know the song, but you only had 3 times to remember it and put it down.
I like that. That's awesome. That makes me want to listen to it even more. I got plenty of time to listen to music today. I'm hanging out with my 4-year-old, so I will be listening to this today.
You'll like it.
That's awesome. So what was there any specific reason? I don't know how to ask this, but back when the hardcore stuff was first coming around, it was just so fast. Was there a particular reason that the music was so fast, or was it just because you were full of energy, young people? When I was young, I liked stuff to be pretty fast, but it was just very, very fast, short songs. Was there a reason behind any of that, or was it just kind of how it came about organically?
That's really how it came about organically. Like I mentioned before, I think like one of my favorite all time ever New York band, and that was in my time frame when I was growing up in New York, and I really loved to watch was the Stimulators, because there was a connection there. Holly, as a young kid, he was kind of like, he was only 2 years younger than me. There was a connection, and I really enjoyed them. And all of a sudden, like in the Beastie Boys, and all these bands playing at Max's or A7, whatever. Then, like I said, when the Bad Brains came, they changed it all up. It was just like, it was mind blowing to see this band perform and play. Like nobody could ever play like that, perform like that. People have tried, countless people have tried. We had our Minor Threats and SSD Control. We had great bands too, but I think the Bad Brains really kind of like a lot of the young people wanted to start a band like that and wanted to play fast, and everything was kind of going fast. If you listen to even the Misfits, like if you listen to Earth AD, it's very different from Walk Among Us.
That's true.
Two completely different records. It was when the Misfits were now realizing music was changing, and if we want to stay with it, we have to play faster, because Earth AD is a fast record.
It really is.
It's awesome. So that's their attempt. It's the Misfits' attempt of playing hardcore-ish. I mean, it's hard. I hate using words like attempt of playing this time, because to me, like I'll tell you that Victim of Pain is just a punk record. It was a punk record. And then people are like, oh, it's a hardcore record. No, whatever. You want to call it that, you want to call it that. To me, it was always just a punk record. That's how I looked at it. We were just punk kids, and we were doing a record, And like all music was just getting faster on all levels. Even like you're from Texas, you had Defenders, you had DRI. I mean, you had bands that were just going like fast. And it was just something about it that speed made you just like, like it was that aggression that, like, because the earlier punk was kind of cool. You sat there, you shake your butt to it, whatever, stomp your foot to it. But now you're like, everything went crazy, and then everybody starts circle playing. Like, I'm jumping in. It became that. It became that.
There's an electricity there.
It was electricity, and electrified. When the Bad Brains played, they electrified New York, and everybody wanted to play like that. And if you could play like that, if you were as good as musicians, great. But there was a lot of bands that couldn't really play like that because we weren't good as musicians. But we had our attempts,
They had a lot of jazz stuff in their music, a lot of technical stuff in the Bad Brains.
Very, very technical. I mean, even with their reggae was phenomenal. Very, very technical, and they were very good players. And only a few people in New York were very good players. There's a couple of really good early New York rock bands that had great players, like The Abused, for example. Great players. But I always liked I like the Urban Waste and the Reagan Youth, because it was a little bit fat. It was still faster, or the Earth AD, but it was still sloppy and not clean. And that's another thing, like all these bands that even I'm talking about, even though we're all from New York City, we all sounded different.
Right. And that's the one thing about earlier punk music that I enjoy, is that most bands had their own sound, whereas now, and I don't mean any disrespect to any modern bands, there's 1,000 modern bands I really, really love, but back then it was hard to copycat somebody. You had a unique sound. It was very easy to create your own sound, because it was all, like you said, regional. Your neighborhood is where you got your sound from.
Right. And like I said, you could mimic a sound. Anybody can sound like the Clash. You've seen it. Anybody can sound like the Pistols, or anybody can sound like Minor Threat. But you can't mimic a time.
Right.
Like, it's cool.
That's very accurate.
Sounding a certain way, whatever. And those are their influences, but that was a certain time that I can't see it repeating. There was a lot going on that time. I mean, you had Reagan as a president. There was so much going on, fueling everything. So you can't really, it's hard to say what, if it's possible.
I mean, I don't want to get into a political discussion, but
No,
I
I
feel
don't
like
need it.
right now we might have some good punk records come out in the next couple of years. Who knows?
Yeah, then again, you never know.
In the interest of full transparency, I may like embarrass myself here, but I was never a big fan of Bad Brains. But over the last like year, talking to other musicians and hearing people how much they love that band and what it meant to them, I really wish I was old enough to have been able to see them play live. I think that would have changed. And that's with a lot of bands. I think a lot of bands, if you see them play live, your opinion of that band will likely change.
Absolutely. Like I've told everybody, Agnostic Front's not a record band. We were a live band. Every one of our records sounds completely different. Every one of them.
That's true,
Every
actually.
one of them. Because we were never a recorded studio band. We're a live band. Now, when you see us play, we play all those songs. It sounds like it's like in the same thing. Like, wait, that's that song, but it sounds everything works. And
right.
And that goes for a lot of the bands back then. They were really never studio bands. They were like live is the way to catch it all. Now in the West Coast, you had the middle. I don't know if you're familiar with Middle Class.
No.
Okay, Middle Class was an early band from LA, and this is a little rivalry of who really started playing faster, or the term hard. Which one of that on the East Coast or West Coast really were the first ones to start playing really fast, like this hardcore. What they turned out calling hardcore,
right?
Middle Class, and then you have the Bad Brains. So if you're on the West Coast, they claim middle class. On the East Coast, you claim Bad Brains. But I think maybe the Middle Class's record came out first, a few months before. But honestly, back then, like we didn't know what was going on. Like we didn't have the internet.
Right.
So,
right.
By the time a record came out, it shipped over here, whatever. Even all those UK bands, when they had a new record out, it would take 3-4 months for it to come to America before we even heard it and knew what was going on. Today you just boom, go on the computer. You know exactly every song. You could download every song. You know what everything sounds like. We didn't have that. We had to wait till it got to a record shop, and a record shop usually stocked 3 or 4. And then if you didn't get there first, you had to wait for the next shipment. And that's how it was. And I used to love reading Maximum Rock and Roll back then, because they would do all these scene reports all over the world, and we knew kind of the stuff. And I remember, like, for example, one band, which is a very sought after record, kind of from the Midwest. Oh, I can't remember right now. I remember Maximum Rock and Roll writing about it, and then 3 copies showed up at Freebie, and I bought all 3 copies. I used to do that. I used to buy, like, especially if I heard it and I liked it, and I heard it, my friend had it, I liked it. I always bought 3 of everything. That was my thing, because first of all, it was only like $1.50, $2. So United Blood was $1.50 when we sold it.
That's
a $2,000 record now.
That's insane.
Because back then we played them. So
right.
when people come over the house, getting drunk, the record would fall. You step on it, you cracked it, and then it's So I always, if I really liked the record, I always bought 3. So fast forward, when I started like pulling all my stuff together, I'm like, wow, look at this. I have 4 of these, I have 3 of these, and then I started like keeping the nicest one, the unplayed ones that I've never played, because I never got to play them, and started selling the other stuff, and I did pretty good. I was like, wow, it was great. All this stuff worked out for me in the future, but I never intended on buying them for that reason. I bought them because it was wild back then. House parties and people coming over, and
I did that in the 90s, man.
People I could tell you, like, I've had bands stayed over my squats and places I lived and stuff, and also my records. Some records would be gone. Like people would steal stuff from you too, So, back then, like I said, everybody would. It was hard to get stuff, and when you found something you liked, you never bought one, unless you were gonna like. There was no such thing as a record collector back then. I don't even know where that came from. Like, I tell people I was never a record collector, even though you look at me, you'd be like, oh yeah, you're a record collector. I was a music enthusiast. I loved every one of these records. I listened to them. I love them. And that's why I got them. And I was also lucky enough to be in a band. I was traveling at that magical time where everybody was giving me everything. Back then, nobody gave you CDs or a digital download. Like, hey, check out my record. It's a 7-inch. And then, and these are some great records, and I would go back to New York City, play them, like, oh, this is great, And so I ended up naturally building up a really nice little record stash that I still, to the day, it's all I listen to, all I love. I don't listen to anything digital. I don't own any CDs,
Really?
No, I hate digital music. I don't own any CDs. I don't have
Whoa,
I don't have Spotify. I don't have none of that stuff. I don't care for it.
that's
I got my
wild.
room. I got my room. My turntable. My still my no. I don't. It's not my original turntable, but it is my original amp. My original speakers.
Okay.
It's probably my third turntable, and I put on my records, and that's what I love to hear. It's insane. It's what really works for me. Now saying that, and even in the vehicles we had on tour, we always had a cassette player because I do love cassettes
Yeah.
too. As well as
I like
cassettes and
cassettes too.
vinyl. So then later on, they started coming out with vans with CDs, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. I remember taking CDs and throwing them out the window just to piss people off. In the Disasters tour, like, listen to this CD. I'm like, oh, let me see. Oh yeah, boom, throw out the window. It's like, I don't listen to that stuff.
Damn.
You
I
know?
love cassette tapes. I have
Yeah,
a
I love
little
cassette.
label, and I started out doing tapes.
So
I love it.
I just felt, it was, to me, it wasn't just, it was just like I really like hearing that needle hit the record and just waiting. Just something I like. It's a mental thing, maybe. I really like it. It calms me, But I don't listen to the radio, you know.
Yeah, nor should you. Ugh,
Though,
garbage.
though, when I'm recording, when I'm doing stuff like that, and they'll send me something digitally to listen to, I have no choice. I'll listen to it, and
Right.
I'll get it through my thing. But it's not. I'm not gonna keep it. I don't really care. I'm just gonna. I have 500 and something variants of Agnostic Front records and cassettes.
That's amazing.
500, and we've only put out 13 records. So think about that.
No, that's amazing.
I
That's
have
a huge
over
number.
100 Russian flexi discs. They're all different.
Dude.
People don't know about all this stuff.
I love Flexies, man. Dude,
Yeah.
I would love to see your collection, man. I mean, I'm down in Houston, but like, there's a warmth with vinyl that doesn't come with CDs. I like CDs too, but there's a warmth with a vinyl record because they're mastered different too, and a lot of folks don't even know that. But like, yeah, when you hit the stylus hits that record, it's got a different sound, and if you got a good speaker, it's gonna sound real pretty, man. It's just a good, and you have a relationship with your music that way.
Yeah, it's a connection.
Yes,
It was meant to be that way.
I agree.
When I recorded the record and I got my acetates and stuff, it's all in the book. You can see all the original acetates and my reels, my test presses. And I took it to the record store, played it. We recorded for vinyl. And our very first cassette from Victim in Pain, for example, it's weird because if you own an original Victim in Pain cassette tape, every one of them is gonna skip in the song "Victim in Pain." So whoever actually made the cassette tape, which was Rat Cage back then, must have took it from the record and must hit record, and the record skipped or hit something and it skipped, and every one of them has a skip in "Victim in Pain."
Whoa.
And then and it's a different sounding. The original first and second pressing, which are original, they sound completely different to anything that ever came out later. Now, last year we did 40th anniversary of United Blood and Victim in Pain, and I took it right from the original reels.
Nice.
And gave it to Don Fury, who was the original recorder, and he remixed United Blood and he mastered it the way he envisioned it, and the same thing with Victim in Pain, mastered it, and it sounds phenomenal because everything that's been coming out after 1985 has been off a digital mastering for CD. Now we're back to an analog mastering for vinyl. They only came out in vinyl. So now if you pick up, they're called United Blood Legacy. So it has extra songs. Yeah, and then we released them ourselves. We self-released them, and I did a lot of beautiful collector stuff with it. So it's United Blood Legacy and Victim in Pain Legacy. They are different sounding. They sound closer to the very first ones, but on fire. That's the way they should have been, if you're going to pick anything up.
I appreciate vinyl enthusiasts, and I like that you made a distinction between record collector and music enthusiast because there is a difference there.
Yeah.
Some people buy records and they might listen to some of them, but they don't listen to them all the time. And I try to make a point to, my record player is right next to me, and I try to make a point to at least once a day put something over there. I don't always get to it every day, but every week I listen to a few records. That's for sure. I mean, I didn't used to for a little while. It kind of was just easier to do other things, but I had to get back in the habit of doing that because it is important. Why are you making them? Why are you buying them if you're not listening to them?
And it's so good for your mind, Exactly. And there's people that have all these. Besides Agnostic Front, that's because it's my own band. I want to collect everything I can from Agnostic Front. like 540 variants. I mean, there's 60 something variants of Victim in Pain. You know what I mean? Like
that's so much.
Plus, I did that whole Discog entries of everything, so people had it, you know, to reference to. But as far as the other bands go, like I mean, it's always just original pressings, or if I like something, I have first and second variations. You'll get to see, if you go to Vinyl Assault, you'll get to see some of the stuff. It's not all the stuff. What I did with that, and it's kind of the same thing I did with the book. When you really start looking at it, I did a tour around the country. You know, one day I was bored and I started putting on records and I did it like a tour. I started over here in DC. I went down south. I went across. I went up there. I went there, and I played songs, bands I really liked. Nobody ever got that, but that was me. That was what I was feeling, pulling out records from certain different things and listening to them, you know, and in different areas, you know. And of course, I'm not going to put I don't have the time to put everything on my record collection up, but it was just how I was feeling for the day, for the time, you know. So, and there's some pretty crazy stuff in there. If you're an avid record collector, you're going to see stuff there that is worth a lot of money. But
I love looking through that kind of stuff. It's
me
just,
too.
I enjoy looking at it, and like I enjoy hearing about it. I don't even have to own it. The fact that you've got it, I think is cool. I'd like, you know, tell me about your record collection. You know, in my little store, it's only open on the weekends, but I love when people come in and tell me about their favorite record that they got. Oh, I picked up this thing last week, and check this out, man.
You got a lot of great Texas bands, and in my actual collection, Texas is probably my third biggest, because I loved all the Texas band. There's only one record I never got my hands on, and to this day I wish I could someday. I hope someday I will. Hope so. Hopefully it'll pop up somewhere. I don't know if you're familiar with a band called the Vomit Pigs from Dallas.
No, I haven't heard that.
I love that band, and until I don't have it. So a lot of this stuff is really old punk stuff, hardcore punk stuff, you know. But I have a lot of Texas stuff because I really admire a lot of the Texas bands. Love them.
We have a whole history of stuff down here because we were so far from everybody. Like I'm still learning it out from here. You know,
actually, you know, you can't. Hey, nobody's born cool. Nobody's born with tattoos. You know,
right.
Yeah. You eventually you find your way to what you like, what you love, and you start researching, and somebody will turn you on to something that you're like, oh, that's cool. That's how. Remember when you went to your first concert?
I do.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, and then you went to another show, and you saw a band, and you're like, okay, this is it. This is where I want. This is where I feel like I belong, and that's where it goes.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm glad you understand that, because I even when I said the thing about Bad Brains earlier, I almost didn't mention it, but I was like, I gotta tell you this because I appreciate your story about them, because regardless of how I felt about them 2 years ago, I don't care about that. How do I feel about it right now? I want to learn. I do this channel because I want to learn. Yeah. I'm not an authority on anything. I don't have. I'm not the oldest guy. I'm not the youngest guy. I'm certainly not the coolest. But you know, I remember when I first heard Agnostic Front, I didn't understand that there was a difference. Like I didn't know that there was hardcore until like I was in my mid-20s, man. Like I was listening to bands like H2O, Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, Madball, and then the people are like, "Oh, that's a hardcore band." I'm like, "What the fuck's a hardcore band?" Like, yeah, it's just a punk band.
Yeah, that's all just names and stuff, you know.
I mean, I appreciate it, but I was very much like, "What?" and whatever.
Yeah. Well,
no, no disrespect, but
no, absolutely no. And you know what? Not everything is for everyone. Not everybody is the same thing, and that's what was the beauty of punk rock anyway. Like, look, you know, there's a lot of bands I don't get. And a lot of people love that band, and for some reason it just doesn't hit me. It just doesn't hit me, you know, like it hit you.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you're any better than me or I'm better than you, or you know, and you know, it's just it just doesn't hit. It doesn't do it for you, and that's okay.
People don't understand that.
And that's totally okay. Like, listen, Agnostic Front's is not for everybody. And that's why people love the Disasters, because they don't like Agnostic Front. They can relate to the Disaster, or they like the Alligators. They can relate to something. And that's fine. I'm not trying to win anybody over, you know, or on likes or whatever. I'm just expressing myself. And I feel like I need those outlets to express myself and say what I got to say. Because then I'm at peace. It's like I'm still writing this diary, you know, and I need to put it somewhere. That's who I am, you know.
I love it. I love digging into lyrics. I like when I listen to old Agnostic Front songs. You listen to the lyrics, you can feel like within you could feel the time. You can understand what was going on. Just listen to the lyrics, and then if you know anything about what was going on in the world at that point in time, you can understand exactly why you were saying what you were saying, and it's still relevant. It's still relevant right now.
A lot of it's very relevant, but then you get those people that visit the Lower East Side, like, what is he talking about? This is really nice. Yeah, it wasn't nice in 1980. Google the Lower East Side 1980, 81, 82, 83. Google that and look at those photos, and then Google Lower East Side today. It's like LA today,
Right.
that's burned down. That was the Lower East Side back then. And
It was a mess.
And it's all like it's like $1 million homes now. Like, what is it? And they'll be like, what is this guy talking about? It's nice. Well, it's a time, and a place. And fast forward 40 years has made a lot of difference. And that's why I kind of left New York City, because it wasn't what the New York City I knew, and I was okay leaving. Like, why am I gonna pay all this stuff? I need to raise a family. I can't do it here. It's killing me, and it's not the same New York City. It's changing so fast. I might as well go somewhere where I could raise a family.
Yeah, I lived in a real bad neighborhood in Houston for a while called Third Ward, and I hadn't been down there in a while. And I was driving through Houston recently, and I ended up going through Third Ward, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I felt sad because I saw all these really nice apartments everywhere. When I was living out there, it was very run down. I mean, it was probably the worst neighborhood in town for a while, and it was just like, man, where did all the people that had their homes go? Because I know they can't afford this shit, because I can't either. And it's a bummer, man. It's pushed you out of New York. That's crazy.
Yep. Gentrification, my friend.
Yep. So if you have the time, I would like to know, what was some of your early, like, first shows that you went to, and what really got you into punk rock music? Was it just the fact that you were a young kid kind of out in the streets doing your thing, or was there a specific band or a song you heard?
Well, I mean, true identity. I mean, I accidentally stumbled across a Clash. What an accident, huh? And I actually, I was intrigued more by the way they talked. And they had that guy Dread with him, this Rasta guy. I forgot his name. It was their DJ and their I forgot. And I had and I was more intrigued by the way they would talk. I never heard anybody talk English accent. What did I know? I'm a kid,
Right.
And then my cousin got into punk. He got into punk big, like the Ramones and the Pistols and all that. And he was the one that took me to Max's Kansas City and all these places and introduced me to that. And I was like, this is cool. I really liked it, Then I started going. I started, just loving it. Just like that, It was like, it was that second introduction that when my cousin took me, that I felt like, I always tell people, I never got into punk. It got into me.
Yeah.
It just got into me and just boom. And I was like, this is it. I love this, And those, and then some, that was my earliest shows. And I would see a lot. I saw the Misfits a lot because, hey, I got lucky. I lived around there. I lived in Jersey, part of New York. And they were a band I really loved. I love the theatrical thing about it. I love the music. And they were an amazing band to see back then. It was like a controlled train wreck because they didn't sound good, but I didn't care about any band didn't sound good. It was Glenn controlled the whole thing. It was just the show. Like, wow, look at this. Monsters with instruments. It was like Kiss on Punk or something like that.
Right.
It was wild. It was just like, to me, like I say, it was what the band was expressing, like watching the Clash later on and just feeling them. It was a feeling. Like, I never went out of a show and said, well, the sound sucked. Like,
right.
I think everybody's sound sucked back then. If I start thinking about it, like, we were playing out of the worst gear. I mean, even Agnostic Front, we didn't even have real drum heads, bass head. We used 2 pizza boxes from the pizzeria and we tape them up, and that was the drum head. And we didn't care. We didn't even hear the drum pedal. We didn't hear it. We didn't care. It was just like as long as we heard the snare and we had something to hear.
Right.
Nothing was mic'd. Everything was loud. I'm sure it sounded like hell. Like any band today would be like, "What? I'm not playing," or whatever, But that didn't matter back then, And if you look at a lot of pictures or look at early Misfits pictures, and they're playing like these really crazy looking shows, these VFW, it sounded horrible.
Right.
You know it. So it was just the attitude that was being projected from from the band to you, and it was like I was just absorbing it. You know, like, whoa, I want this, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm in the pit, and like, yeah, it's feeding me, and I'm feeding them. You know, that's how it all happened for me.
That's amazing.
Probably the same story everybody will tell you that was around that back then.
Very similar stories, but you never know the story you'll get if you ask somebody that. And it is a feeling, like you said. It's not even a sound necessarily. I remember 3 exact points in my life, and I mean they're like little seconds that I can remember where if those 3 things hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am. And it's funny because they were all like real close and like within my timeline. And yeah, I mean I remember the very first time I heard a punk rock like song like chord like this it sounded different. It was a Rancid song on a radio in 94, and then I saw them play live in 96, and I was like, oh, that's it for me. This is me. I like this.
Yeah, there you go. And that's how it was for me. You know, it was that connection, like, oh yeah, I love this. And but just imagine, you know, you got to see Rancid in 94. They just, I think they just got popular. No, they got more popular later on. But
yeah, I saw them in 96, and they were Out Come the Wolves tour. Yeah,
that's from there on. They became radio popular, and they had a really great sounding. Out Come the Wolves was a great sounding album.
Yeah,
you know, it was like very good sounding. You know, but I'm talking about like, you know, seeing these bands live back then. They didn't. And now that I think about it, it's funny because I'll read reviews, current reviews, or somebody talking about a show like, yeah, I want to go see this band, but it didn't sound good. Or I'm like, did you really go to hear the sound? Did you go to like this, you know? And it's amazing. You know, it's just amazing. Like I have punk records that I tell this to people. It's funny because of my explanation. Like I like bad pizza. I'm from New York. Yes. I like great pizza, but I really like bad pizza too. I love bad punk. Bad.
Dude, I feel you.
Shit about the Necros Sex Drive. It's because, you know, of course Necros went on and it got better. They did some other thing. I love Necros Sex Drive. I think it's the best release. I love it. You know, I something about like bad punk that really hits me right. You know,
I do know that. Actually, I know how you feel, like almost to an absurd degree, because when me and my buddies who watch movies together, I like bad movies. I like shot on video camcorder, like fucking ketchup as the blood, like whatever, man. Because I want people that made the movie solely because they wanted to make a movie. If that's their only reason behind it, I want to watch that and I want to see what they created. Kind of like with the punk music. If they wanted to make a punk rock record and their only reason to make it was to make a punk rock record, let me at least hear it once, man. Shit, I might love it. Who knows, man? Yeah. Perfection is not really for me, man. It's not my jam at all.
No, don't get me wrong. Like nowadays, I appreciate great stuff. You know,
sure,
great albums, but I still have this thing for really horrible stuff that's played like a drummer that's lacking or he's trying to catch up. So good, and then when he finally catches up, he's there, and everybody else is just doing something different. After this guy just caught up, and then you're gonna change it. You know, it's just, I love it, man. And I love also female fronted.
Me too. Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
Especially the early, like Mary Monday and all those early female fronted bands.
I like X-Ray Specs a lot. Her vocals are like top notch.
Phenomenal.
Man, top notch, man.
It's just like, and a lot of people don't. They don't like squeaky girl voice.
Oh, no, I love it.
I just, something about it I really like.
Bikini Kill had really good. I like her vocals a lot too.
I like what I like, and
no, man, dude, talking to you has got me wanting to listen to music. It's making me happy. That's exactly what
we got enough music behind you to pull something out and play.
Yeah, I've got a fair bit of records, man. I don't have like I have to thin my collection out every now and then because it gets a little absurd, and I got 3 little kids right now, so my priority is that, but. I do have a few that are like super nice and I'm real proud of, but my somebody told me once, you can either have a good record collection or a good record store, and my focus is having a good record store right now. So
I once said, let me thin this out. And I did a book signing with my first book. I went to California. It was like a record thing. I'm like, let me bring some California bands. I really don't listen to this that much anymore. And I sold it, and the whole drive home, I was so pissed off at myself. I had definitely done that. I had to get everything back. I was like, why did I do that? why did I do that? And I eventually picked up and good thing it was like mystic stuff, like I'm like, why did I do that? I really like this song, and I was so pissed off myself, and that's why, like, that people are like, well, how do you have all this stuff? Like, for some reason it's hard for me to let go, man. I really like it.
No, sometimes if you let it go, you'll find out how much you did appreciate it, and
then
it's
you
kind of
give it
like,
back.
yeah, that's the route you had to go to get that album's true appreciation. You have to like sell it. I've definitely sold records and movies where I was like, oh shit, why did I let that go? Like, it's tough, man. I just did my first final release on my label, and somebody was asking me for my test presses, and I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna let these go. I don't even need all of them, but I don't think I'm gonna let them go. I don't. It's too important to me. Okay. Last question before I get out of here, man. Let you have the rest of your day to yourself. What would be, if you can come up with this answer off the top of your head, what would be like your favorite, maybe your favorite record and your favorite Agnostic Front record?
Wow. Favorite record, that's tough. I love the Misfits a lot. I love SSD Control a lot. That's a hard one. If I had to pick maybe top 5, and I'll tell you what, in my top 5, I have to include my own record, Victim in Pain, because I'm always surprised by how great that is. I put myself out of it. I don't put myself in it, and I really love the way it sounds, the way it hits in the turntable, the way it just comes at you, and I think start to end, it's a phenomenal record.
I agree.
I put that in there. I know people are like, oh, that's your own record. Well, you know what? It's a great record. I feel like it's one of the top 5.
What, are you going to write a record you don't like?
Well, it's weird. I didn't mean to. I just love it. But there's a lot. Like I say, I think I do like Beware the Misfits. I like SSD Control. Kids have to say. Some people, well, they prefer the others, whatever. I mean, Minor Threat is phenomenal. Minor Threat. Negative Approach. Oh, do I love Negative Approach?
Yeah.
And then, going to Texas, like there's a lot of great stuff in Texas, like AK-47. There's a lot. There's just
right. Yeah. It's kind of a loaded question.
There's so much. I can't just pick one. I really can't. I can't do that. But a lot of it boils down to American punk hardcore. Like I have UK stuff too.
Yeah.
But and I do. I have all the classic Oi records, all the classic punk records I do. But the American stuff to me was just on another level, and I really love it. I love all the American stuff the most.
That's amazing, man. Well, I really appreciate your time this morning, man. I know it's we're busy people. Time is a currency we don't get back. So I appreciate hanging out with me for a little while. Yeah, I will just I'll talk to you again one of these days, maybe. I know if you come back down to Texas, I will see you play live. I watched you play with the Misfits recently, so that was fun.
We are coming down to Texas. We're coming, but we're going to Austin.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
Dallas and down south to what it was, that little city down there.
Is it damn it, I should know this.
Oh God, I should know it too.
It's the one that. Yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but we are coming down. Before I leave, I just want to, remind people you should definitely, if you want to, want a visual history of Agnostic or the punk scene or the very early beginning punk hardcore scene in New York City, what it was like, pick up that book, With Time, Agnostic Front with Time. It's based on my archives. Follow Agnostic Front on Instagram, Facebook. The same thing goes for if you want to check out some really cool collectors like style and stories. Follow Vinyl Assault. Check that out. Pick up the Alligators, pick up the Disasters. Pick everything up. Support your own scene, support your own bands. And thank you for the interview.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you for your time, bro. I appreciate it. I think you're playing with Liberty and Justice in Texas, right? Yeah. So those are some really good friends of mine. I will be at least one of those shows. So maybe we'll get to shake your hand and say hello. Otherwise, man, have a great day. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the weather if it's nice. Thanks, man.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, brother. Peace.
Peace.